Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandan Schultz, and I am joined on this Tuesday evening live out on YouTube by my good buddy, Adam Emmert. Adam, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And the axes, they're starting to fall.
Ooh, boy. It fell hard today. One name I feel like was expected. Two names, kind of, sort of. And then I suppose there are names that may still be yet to come. But Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, and Will Dissly all released by the Seahawks. And Jamal Adams, fine. And others, I know you and I, Will Dissly, probably not so much happy about that one.
Yeah, that one hurts my feelings. And, for obvious sentimental reasons, being Montanans and him being from Montana and all that good stuff. And, just enjoy having a guy like Uncle Will on the team as a whole, just his personality, vibe, everything. And his play on the field. I mean, he was good. I mean, he's maybe not a top 10 tight end or anything like that, but a very good, solid blocking tight end with some little bit of pass catching skills. He will be missed.
It's a bummer, and I see that we've got Phil here in the waiting room joining us as well. So why not make this a complete Montana trifecta with Will Dissly unfortunately being released? And Phil, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm joining from the darkness, riding on Interstate 90 here. The sad day of our Montanan no longer being a Seahawk. Even though it makes a lot of sense, kind of like going home for me while my dad's driving makes a lot of sense. I wanted to get on here and, recognize that it came to an end. I can't say I'm surprised though, right? Are you guys surprised by any of these decisions that were made with these contracts?
No, not particularly. I think, again, we kind of went into this, and I think there were some people who were surprised by the Quandre news in particular, just because of the three guys, that's the guy that you point to and say, well, that's the most talented player. But when you consider the age of Quandre Diggs, when you consider the amount of money that he was set to make this year, it stinks, because I still think that he's a really good player and he's probably going to go ball out somewhere else for at least another year or two. But when you take into account where the team is right now with the transition, again, the money, a lot of spending on the defensive side of the ball, it makes sense to get younger on that side of the ball. And then Dissly, I think it comes down to salary and his health and that sort of thing. Although, we've gotten a lot of playing time out of Dissly. Of the three, I feel like Will would be the most likely to come back if he doesn't find a better deal somewhere else.
Yes,
that would make some sense.
That's what I wanted to ask. What are the odds he comes back at it? What are the odds we get him back? What do you guys think?
Oh, geez. I guess it all depends on the number that he gets offered by other teams. I mean, because he will, and depending on if he wants to change of scenery too. I mean, he might want to, try somewhere new. So I don't know, maybe 30% is where my heart's at. But I'd say let's talk a little bit more about Quandre, because I do feel like that's the most significant cut, just in terms of impact on the on-field play.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we heard a lot about, especially from KJ, was just the youth in the defensive side of the locker room, the need for actual leadership in the locker room, and to kind of keep those guys on the rails. And of the few guys that he said were that sort of dude, Quandre was a big one of them. So they lose that locker room leader, that adult in the room. It's going to be curious who Mike and John bring in to help stabilize that. Or maybe Mike just feels like, him as a coach, he's not as laid back as Pete maybe about some of these things, and he can take on that role a little bit more.
Yeah, and with regard to that locker room leader part, that was the thing that I kind of had the biggest question mark around going into this offseason, because one of the things we heard from KJ Wright, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more KJ Wright tonight because he's a guy that I'm super pissed at, but it's fine. But one of the things that KJ said during the season, and when he was listing out leaders within the locker room, because that was one of the things that we talked about kind of throughout the season, is the lack of leadership in the locker room. I think it was KJ that brought it up himself. and was saying, yeah, Bobby's a leader. You got Jaron Reed up front, who's a leader. And then I think someone said Quandre, and KJ kind of did like a, like not.
Yeah, he did that
real
once, and then
Yeah.
he listed him as one of the dudes a couple other times when he talked
Okay.
about it. So I don't know. Take from it what you will, I guess.
Yeah. I was a little disappointed with Quandre. I like him. I don't feel like he helped the defense step up like he needed to. I felt like Bobby was left hanging. I feel like there's a lot of finger pointing. Maybe Jamal was really the big problem behind it all. I think this decision makes sense. If Quandre wasn't ready to take a cut or redo his salary, which I think he's a prideful man, and that was highly unlikely, I was quite expecting that both Jamal and Quandre would be let go. Jamal was like, I was almost sure. Quandre, I figured he would, even though we'll miss him a little bit. I think it's time for some new leadership, someone that's going to get behind Mike and someone that Mike can really help unlock and lead and just totally buy in. I don't know if Quandre is a buy-in to anybody's way, but the Quandre way, I'm not sure that he's other than doing things the way he wants. He was even comfortable kind of subtweeting or speaking against some of Pete Carroll's approach to things, I felt like. So I think it makes a lot of sense if Mike's going to come in and say, here's how we're going to play safety. Let's get the guy Mike wants.
I'm going to miss off-season general manager Quandre Diggs, though. I felt like he was, like a big cheerleader for the team and bringing people in. And so I'm definitely going to miss that part about him for sure. And Clinton Bonner in the chat pointing out when we're talking about tight ends and Will Dissly, the thing is Dissly was under contract. And so if we're talking about this as a barometer, 3 years, $36 million for Dalton Schultz to stay in Houston, that's $12 million a year on average. Will Dissly came in under that. Obviously, Dalton Schultz probably toward the top end anyway. But and we're talking about Will Dissly as being the top end, versatile, do everything tight end. He could do everything well. I think he was more talented as a blocker, and I think they're going to miss having that aspect if they're not able to find another blocking tight end that can be as talented as that part of it. I would have been fine with them staying at that number based on blocking ability, but I suppose you do want to have a little more.
Touchdowns and first downs are what gets you the big bucks as tight end, though, right, Brandon? Normally,
right.
You got to catch those.
It's true. So we've got our Ryan 911 coming in with the $9.99 super chat, our live executive producer. We haven't been doing a lot of live shows, but there is Ryan as soon as we're going live. So thank you for the super chat, Ryan.
Yeah, appreciate that, bud. Spending the money with us. And I think one of the things that we're starting to see maybe is how Mike, in conjunction with John, want to spend their money defensively. Like, obviously, I mean, the Jamal thing is kind of a no-brainer just with the injury history and the performance and everything. But getting rid of big money at the safety spot, let's see if they turn around and reinvest that in the trenches and then spend a little less on the back end, maybe with younger guys. I had seen a comment earlier saying, does this mean more Kobe at free safety? I don't know. Maybe is Kobe even going to be on the team by the time we get there? That's what's kind of fun about all this, is that we really don't have a good sense of how Mike operates and what he's looking for. And especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath.
It has that potential.
Isn't Ravens Geno available as a free agent too? The Mr. Interception that Mike unlocked there. Did I hear that? Is that right?
Geno Stone? Yeah. I just don't know how much I want to be spending on high dollar defensive free agents. Like I kind of want to go young and develop young players. And so, I mean, maybe if there's one, that's fine. But yeah, I don't think I want to go huge spending on the defensive side
Youth
of the ball.
On the defense, free agents in the trenches, interior line, but maybe a little bit interior defense or maybe one linebacker.
Interior defense is fine. Those guys are relatively cheap. It's not like you're going to bring on a bunch. I mean, unless you're talking about pass rushers in the interior, but everybody else on the interior is relatively cheap.
Yeah, and they need to obviously pay a lot of attention at the linebacker spot here, whether it is they bring back Brooks or If they wipe the slate clean at that position group too and go young. And you did see that, Mike was able to get the best out of an older player in Roquan and a young guy in Patrick Queen. So knowing which way he might want to go there, I don't know, man. Do you think they'd spend a bunch of dollars on Patrick Queen?
I hope not.
I think it's possible if they don't bring Brooks back, but I don't see him going heavy Brooks and Queen in the middle. That seems a little bit steep, but I don't know. They did that with Roquan Smith and had him paired with Patrick Queen, but I don't know if the Ravens are again going to spend that money in the offseason on two linebackers too. So we've got Matthew. I want to get to Matthew Armstrong's comment. I also want to get to Carly Perkins and her $4.99 super chat. Lockett is still on the team, so I'm fine with this for now. I will miss Diggs though, and I'm gonna miss Diggs too, because again, of the personalities, it felt like he had and the talent, personality, talent. I was a big Quandre Diggs fan,
and we're gonna have far fewer dopes in our lives at press conference, which is kind of. So is he a bust? That was the comment you had talked about right before Car, right?
Yeah, Matthew Armstrong. Is it fair to call Jamal Adams a complete bust?
No.
I don't know. I think it is.
He has the record. It's not a great trade, but he has the record. So complete, I would not use the word complete bust.
And a nearly complete bust, if not for getting that defensive back sack record.
So if 100% is complete bust, he was like a 87% bust. Is that what we're at?
Bad trade, not a complete bust.
I have one. I'm fine with calling him a complete bust, because I don't know, the record for defensive back sacks doesn't really do anything for me. That's an individual thing and not a team thing, and he didn't help us as a team. So, I'm not going to defend Jamal Adams if somebody's calling him a complete bust.
The only thing that I would defend him on is that it wasn't because of a lack of effort. It's not like, he came out here and Albert Hainsworthed his way through that deal. Like, his body just said no, and he did what he could from there. It wasn't enough, and you got to let him go at that point, especially at that number, and it frees up a ton of cap space. I get it, but I'm not mad at him in any way, shape, or form.
And we've got
to go, guys.
Phil. We've got walking Phil.
I have to go because I've got to get the car back to the rental. But I had this one major take I wanted to get, and I think Adam already pretty well cleared it. But this is my biggest take. I'm excited that we're moving the money from the back end to the front end. That's what this means, guys. We're moving the money from safety up front. The trenches are going to be better. The Hawks are going to be better. McDonald's going to make this defense better. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks, Phil. That was fun.
Yeah, and I think that's a good take to have if it actually comes to pass, right? Because that's the one thing that I could say, that if you're freeing up this money to invest in the defensive line, if Leonard Williams is coming back, then it makes a lot of sense. If you're freeing up this money to sign other expensive linebackers and safeties, then I think I would have more of a problem with it.
Yeah, I wonder if this does signal a Leo return. That would be very cool. I mean, I totally dug what we saw from Leonard Williams once he came over in the trade. I think he is a difference maker. I do think he fits in a Mike McDonald scheme, and I guess it's just a matter of the number and how Leo feels about it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But it does feel, one of the things that it's I feel like I've noticed over the years with John Schneider is that once he makes moves that then lead into other moves. Mm-hmm. Like, he's not a guy who's going to cut cap space and cut players just for the sake of cutting a player. You're making a move to then make a different move, like really close by after it. And so with free agency coming up, I feel like then this could signal that type of move of a signing of Leonard Williams. And then, once they get into free agency, if they can, because that's the thing. I did say there's possibly more names to come. And Carly says, no, Brandon, there better not be more names to come, at least not one particular name. And Carly and I are on the same page when it comes to Tyler Lockett on this team, because now if you look down the list with Jamal Adams off the top of the pay chart, when it's a quarterback as the top name, you don't get too concerned because the quarterbacks tend to make the most. Now the guy making the most money on the team is Tyler Lockett. And that's why it does concern you and concerns me, Carly. I have that concern, but I don't know. I feel like if Tyler news were to happen, it probably would have come at the same time. Like, wouldn't you make all those moves? But when I think of other names, I think of Brian Monet and his contract and his value for what he's done. And then D. Eskridge is the other name that they could cut, and it frees up, like $1.5 million. And, what's he been doing? So
sure. Minor moves around the fringes, right? At that point,
right.
But you're not wrong about Tyler's cap number and what that could mean. I give it at least a 30% shot that he is no longer with the Seahawks next season. I do think one of the things that works in the advantage of him returning is the fact that I think he genuinely loves being in Seattle and growing his real estate business and doing all the things that he does. And I remember you had the Magic Spot Track webpage up the other day. We were doing the clickies on restructurings and the thingamajoogers and all that. And there were ways to move around money for Tyler. And it seems to me that he would be a guy that would be willing to do that if it meant that he was going to stay.
True Metal Jake with the breaking news, apparently, or at least is heavily into the idea of Tyler being gone. Nate Schutz, I think Tyler is next, but it'll be a retirement. I have a hard time predicting retirement, and maybe it's just because the way Doug Baldwin went out, like that kind of seemed relatively sudden, although he had injury issues that we probably weren't as dialed into. And I don't know, the way Tyler plays, I feel like he could play 2 or 3 more years and still be effective because he takes care of himself on the field. He's more into taking those deep sideline shots to where he doesn't take a lot of hits. And that's one of the good things about him is he's still really good. He's been durable, and I could see him restructuring and sticking with the team.
Yeah. And one of the things about Tyler is his game isn't necessarily predicated on speed. I mean, it's more craft, and that's how he gets open. Those guys, like, that reminds me a lot of like Tim Brown for the Raiders way back when. I mean, he just compiled a zillion seasons of receptions by just being a tactician as a receiver. And that's much how Tyler operates. I'm curious to know from the flock here, where they kind of see the defense going in terms of cuts and that going forward. Do you feel like it's going to be a ton of different dudes that are gone and it's going to be a massive turnover, or is it going to be these likely candidates that we see here and then just kind of bringing in a few guys to shore things up, and Mike McDonald kind of banking on the fact that his scheme is the thing that can really bring a lot of the talent that is on this defensive roster to life? I mean, you think about it, the DB room's really good. I mean, even without any safeties on the roster now, it's really good. And here is Clinton Bonner to the rescue. Thank you, buddy. Fresh off the plane, but still looking fresh. How you doing, bud?
There we go. Look at us. I'm in. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, no, I saw that. I was watching. I'm not a plane, just a little bit of travel, but saw that. Look, it's just the rule, right? We all can't have good internet at the same time. It's just it's simply zero sum. I saw Brandan got frozen. I'm like, oh boy, let me go tap it and help Adam to help carry the conversation. And of course, we got great folks chiming in too, which is super sweet. Adam, did you see there was a question in here a little bit ago? I don't know who it was. I think it might be Will Grieg asking, even if we keep Tyler, don't think we addressed it yet, would you be open to drafting Roma Duze from Washington, like adding yet another wide receiver at the 16 spot? I'm not sure he lasts, but I thought it was an intriguing question even if we keep Tyler.
Yeah. Boy, that kind of gets into the value / need situation, right? And I do think it's almost impossible that Rome is there at 16. That feels so unbelievably low. But with all of the quarterbacks and all that stuff, I mean, I guess maybe he could end up there. Me personally, I am not a just straight up value over need guy. And so I think no, that would be something I would not be interested in. Although I guess you're getting rid of Tyler in this scenario, right?
He was saying whether you do or don't. I think
Okay.
we might have a UW fan on our hands, just craving some room in our life.
I
just
did.
look at,
He's damn good.
he's awesome. But I look at the room and we welcome back Brandan. So Brandon's back and he's healthy and not. It turns out not frozen in carbonite. So you're here, which is good, Brandan.
It's good.
But
yeah,
it's good. You're not frozen in time. But I look at the room and start to be like, all right, well, where's the ball going? Are we gonna throw the ball 60 times a game? Where's it gonna go? Especially if we keep Tyler and look, Bobo's gonna get at least 100 receptions this year, probably 1,500 yards, just about that, probably.
He's gonna have more than Puka had last year.
Oh, okay. I would love it, but I don't believe you. So, yeah.
So what did I miss? Did they cut Tyler when I was frozen? Like, did I also get cut at the same time? Hopefully not.
Yeah, we think that might be. So no, we were just wrapping up talking about will Tyler possibly go, and I also think it's interesting just to debate. I know Carly's going to hate that I even bring this up. Is it interesting to debate that at this point could we be a better team with Tyler not on the field? And I think
it's not even a debate.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
How does not having Tyler make you better?
I'm not sure it does. I'm putting it out there that
I can understand
if
JSN
gets to go be a legit number 2. Oh, well, I'm saying JSN gets to go be a legit number 2, and you get the dollars back, and let's say you improve a significant interior O-line upgrade, and JSN emerges as a legit 2, gets 120 targets. Yeah. Is that a better mix than having Tyler here for a year, using the money that he's going to be owed, and JSN's a 3 again in the second year in a wide receiver market where the top dudes get paid crazy money, and you're kind of burning through years of JSN where he's not a 1 or 2. So I'm weighing all that together. So that's why I'm at least curious to poke at that. And I'll duck as Car throws tomatoes my way. I know they're coming.
Well, I guess the crux to that question is, do you know that JSN is a number 1 or a number 2 receiver? I don't know that we know that. I can't say that with confidence. I mean, I know have always been much higher on JSN in the pick and all that, Clinton, than I have been. But I didn't see anything last year that I was like, yep, abso-freaking-lutely, that guy can take over Tyler's spot anytime now and we'd be just fine. I'm not sure that he's better than Tyler Lockett at this stages in their careers. Could he become better? Sure. Absolutely. It's a possibility. I just don't know how much I can say that I know that or believe in it.
And I don't know if you're stunting his growth at all by being the number 3 wide receiver on the team. Especially if they're going to be throwing it as much as it might suggest with Ryan Grubb's offense coming over from UW, then having Geno Smith, I thought he did a really good job distributing among the 3. And Corey Coleman says Bobo can take the snaps. I love his blocking. I love having a number 4 wide receiver as a blocking wide receiver. But if we're going into the season and it's, DK, if Bobo's your number 3 going into the season, then I don't know, especially with losing Fant and this, who comes back from the tight end group. It feels very deficient then at pass catchers to me.
Yeah, I could buy. I just wanted to gut check it and just see if
Clinton's
people
now
are
muted.
What?
No, I got him.
Okay,
I got him.
Oh no, that means maybe Brandon's on the way back out again.
It might be my internet again.
Okay, yeah, it may be. And I know you guys talked about the cut, the trio of cuts earlier as well. I think you canvassed a little bit of the possibility of Uncle Will coming back on a cheaper deal Adam, I think you were saying like we don't know yet, but I guess in general, would we want that? Is everybody here in favor of Uncle Will back at something a bit more reasonable for our Seahawks and just plug and play and then figure out whatever tight end 1A or 2 looks like? Is that
Yes.
a favorable outcome? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
I know
Yeah.
you love your Uncle Will and Brandon.
Yeah. I
Brandon,
said they better not touch my Disley this offseason. They sure did.
Yeah. And what about you, Brandon? Are you all in if they figure it out with Uncle Will?
Oh, if he comes back?
Yeah, comes back at something a bit more reasonable. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I again, I don't know if his contract was all that unreasonable, but I feel like with him being a Husky, with him local to this area, that's why when Adam said 30%, like that feels about right. Is his chances now? If he goes down and ends up backing up George Kittle in San Francisco, then I'm going to be pissed because KJ brought him down there, and now he wants to go hang out with KJ as KJ's coaching up the assistant linebackers. Then no, I would rather pay Will Dissly his elevated salary. Thank you.
Yeah, make him a player coach. Just do both.
Or, yeah, but you pay Will, you pay KJ just to not be on the Niners, and he can stay home and just do his podcast, and that would be fine with me too. I mean, it's not my money.
That's true. Yeah, just burn it. Who cares? No, but it doesn't feel good having KJ down there, and it would feel even ickier if Uncle Will ended up down there. But you never know with some of this stuff we have seen. I mean, with Sherm going down there, like I'll never count any of this out at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. See, Carly's with me. I love the pettiness of paying him just so he's not on the Niners. Exactly.
I just don't. I think there was a comment in there about like being unaffected by the KJ news, and that's kind of, I think I put myself in that category. I'm just like, dude, if that's his path to get into the NFL, I think deep down, Brandon, that you could find it in your heart that if that's his path in.
There's 31 other teams that could make his dreams come true, and I would be more happy about it.
I understand.
He went to the one team
Look,
that digs at me.
Stay on the West Coast. It makes sense. Like I'm not mad at him. It's like
I'm a little mad at him.
That's okay. You can be. That's totally legit.
Going back to the wide receiver conversation, Corey Coolman saying wide receiver has such a high floor now. We have bigger needs in the trenches. Yeah, and I guess that all comes down to it. If they end up making other moves that then allows them to bring in guys in the trenches, because Damian Lewis is not I'm not opposed to bringing back Damian Lewis just to keep that continuity on the offensive line. I know a lot of people are like, well, he wasn't a Pro Bowler or whatever, but it's hard finding dudes that are just competent guys at guard. And he's probably going to go and fetch a pretty healthy salary somewhere else in the league. I mean, Laken Tomlinson went to the Jets last year, and everybody thought he was like an okay guard. And then he flamed out with the Jets, and they got rid of him. So I feel like D-Lou's better than Laken Tomlinson.
Well, the thing about it here too, Brandon, is Damian Lewis is always available, and it's the greatest ability is availability. They say a lot. I mean, that's hard to come by as well. Not just competency, but being able to stay on the field. Now, I'm not saying that he's been an Iron Man and played every snap and never missed a game, but just overall,
he's out there more than he's not. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, look at the Bears guards; those dudes are always getting hurt.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it.
So.
Well, and I did hear Phil say before he left that he was in his estimation from like a macro point of view that he's like, okay, these moves mean shifting the dollars, right? Which I think is a pretty could be. I think it's a good point, and I'd be excited about that too. So, I guess in the tier of things, Leo Williams, like where do you guys rank him as like priority wise? Is he for the both of you? Number one, number two, number three, from our free agents, who is the biggest priority to re-sign now that we have freed up some capital? So Adam, is it Big Cat or is there somebody else you're like, no, I'd rather re-sign this dude?
Okay. Well, the interesting part of that is what would the length of the contract be? Right. Like that's
30. So probably 3.
3.
He probably wants 4 years.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Right.
probably that dance they're doing where he wants 4 years. He's 30. But the last year on a contract is usually whatever, voidable and get outable and kick the can down the roadable. So let's say it's a 4-year, but with that legit kick the can, who cares? 4th year.
Yeah, so I'm thinking if it's like a 3-year-ish deal, and they always have those what do they call them, like throwaway years or add-on years or whatever they were talking about.
Void years potentially.
Void years, there it is. Yep, that's the one.
I thought I gave a lot of good adjectives for it. I thought I gave plenty of cromulent adjectives, but it's void years. That's, I guess, what they officially call it. Guys.
That's what they officially call it.
Schneider
I couldn't
doesn't
come
like
up
to
with
use void years a lot, though. That was kind of a thing that they just did during when the cap went down around COVID. Then they dipped into the void years a little bit, but that's not something he traditionally does.
Fine, whatever. So yeah, 3-4 years. I would think that Mike would be into something like that if he's going to really build this defense. I mean, it's got to start from the inside out. And Leo Williams is a heck of a football player. And we saw what he was able to do with veterans who were thought of as being way over the hill in terms of their play with like Vinoy and Clowney and guys like that. I would think that he would be salivating for the opportunity to have somebody like Leo Williams up front for him.
So the guys, I guess, for me, who would be priority, like in any order, would be Damian Lewis, who we talked about, Leonard Williams, and then Jordan Brooks probably falls into there too. And so I know Dave Wyman put out an article that said you got to go Jordan Brooks over Big Cat in the middle there on the defense. And I guess the argument to be made is that losing Bobby, if that, because that's probably not gonna. Yeah, I would guess I wouldn't think that he'd be coming back, but then you at least you have some. You're not turning over the entire defense, and so I can understand that. But I think in terms of more impactful players, it's got to be. I'd almost put Damian Lewis first for me, just because it's interior of the offensive line. And I know Corey in the chat says this draft has great offensive line choices. The contract is better too. Yeah. I just don't know if you can guarantee me, apart from saying, okay, you're going to go guard first with your first pick in the first round, right, and just solidify that spot. But then you're not picking again until the third round. And then you're passing on the, potentially going quarterback in the first round when you have 5 or 6 quarterbacks that people are talking about as first round picks. I don't know if I necessarily like waiting then until third round to go guard, when then you're kind of iffy. And I feel like Damian Lewis is probably better than who you're going to be picking at third round.
Yeah, there are the strength of the draft, as folks, not me, other folks like EJ and others are like, hey, the strength of this draft is the offensive line, and specifically interior offensive line, that there is depth and strength there. And with all that said, it's not known or seen as a particularly overall strong draft, because NIL and everything with the COVID year still kind of mucking things up, and people just really NIL, and then the transfer portal, people just sticking around, but like, yeah, I'll go make $1 million and stay in school. That sounds really, really smart, and can't blame a 22-year-old, right, for doing that. That does sound really smart, Mr. 22-year-old. I would do that too. So it's not too deep that way. With that, I still think that's the play, guys. Is like at 16, whether or not we talked about this in the show that's going to come out in a day or two now. It got pushed back because of this, but Adam and I talked about, look, would you rather take your fave at 16, let's say it's an interior offensive line, or trade back into the 20s, and then you have a pod of what you would say tier 2 interior guys that you're comfy with, but you also get back into the second round. So I think that's a pretty interesting thing that we might see as well. But I'm also like, look, if you got a dude that, and we talked about, but if there's a dude you really like, guard or right tackle that can swing inside to guard, I'm all about it, guys. I really think that's where we should lay our chips. And at 16, you probably could get what you think is the best guard in the draft, which is pretty exciting to me. I know it's not the sexiest position, but I'm not here for sexy. I'm here to keep our quarterback upright and make holes for Ken Walker.
I would say that I wouldn't hate that at all if they spent that sort of pick on a premium trench player. That'd be really exciting to me. But if a quarterback happens to fall that they really like to 16, like say somehow JJ McCarthy falls to 16 and they're really into him, or Penix is there and they're really into him. I don't think they trade back. I think if one of those top 5 guys that you're talking about, just in terms of overall picks, like Marvin Harrison or Duze or, any of those guys that are really, really good, right, fall to 16, you probably don't trade out. But if this were Prop Stars, Clinton, if this was our gambling show that we do during the season, and I had to put money on what John is going to do there at 16, it's going to be that he's going to trade back and try to recoup a second or another lower first round pick, or however it is it works on the trade value chart and all that stuff. But that would be my my guess if I had to. Phil made me laugh with that one. That'd be my guess if I had to put money on it.
Cody Barton, I did see that New Gosh. I'm going to say New Gosh had it up there earlier that we will not get a second rounder for a trade down. I mean, okay, New Gosh. I don't know. I don't know the crystal ball.
I think it's just with regard to the trade value and who's available. It probably ends up being, you might get, I don't know, with the trade value, it might end up being a high third, or maybe package things together so you can get a second. There's probably ways to do it if you really value getting a second round pick. But I wanted to disagree with Corey on the idea that Damian Lewis is just a guy. I feel like he's better than that. I know he's not a Pro Bowler. I know he is not average. I feel like he's a little bit better than average, to where you pay a guy like that because he's a really good football player. And I would rather continue to invest in the offensive line, keep that group relatively together. And I do think it's not saying that he's the only guy that I think you need to sign and bring back, because I really like Leonard Williams too. And I'd really like to bring him back because I think it's important to have that guy on the trenches on the other side of the ball too.
Well,
I would just good. Adam.
Oh, first, I just wanted to shout out my nephew Riker here, who's a great little nephew. Love the little man. Only has one personality flaw, being a Steelers fan, but other than that, he's perfect. He's perfect. Love you, little buddy. But Brandan, I think what you're talking about there is something that you and I align on a lot when we've been talking about players over the years and stuff like that. We really do prefer that bird in the hand. That risk tolerance there is kind of how that goes. Plus, we have some loyalty to the guys because they were on the team and that sort of thing. But I think this year I'm far more open to the idea of them being like, whoop, nope, we're not bringing Dame Lou back. We got a different plan, and this is what we're doing. Because we got to let them do, right? Like, I wasn't excited for this change this year, but now that it's here, and we have to embrace it, and that's the way that I look at it anyways.
Yeah. It could be interesting, though, if we went like kind of conservative on the offensive line, which I think would be like bring Dame Lou back, sign another dude, right, with the money that's sitting there now, and then really go young on the defensive line, or take that 16th pick and be like, nope, that's defensive line. We're going back over there. I could live with that combo too, because I'm okay with bird in hand type offensive linemen. All right, you might not be a top 5 as offensive line, but when will we ever?
Here's the thing:
you get to 12 or 15, it's probably okay. Probably enough.
A lot of this is going to depend on where this team really views itself, because if you're not going to pay a guy like Damian Lewis on the offensive line, who has a longer term outlook with the team overall, you can spread out that cap money, sign him to a 5-year deal. He's going to be with the team a long time, 3-4 years down the road. It's not going to seem like a big salary for a guard, versus signing a 30-plus-year-old interior defensive lineman. I guess I would rather have the dude who's going to be with the team a longer amount of time, based on the future side of it.
There's a lot to unpack with all that, man, and it's just we kind of fall back to, with all this, hard telling not knowing, right? It just feels like this is the hard telling not knowing off season, more so than any other time.
I will give one example of. I do think, by the way, that if we move from 16 and move into the 20s, that we could get back into the second round. And an example would be the Packers. And why the Packers? Just because of like it lines up logically for a second, right? Just to play it forward. They have the 25th overall pick. Let's say the Packers are like, ooh, we love one of these wide receivers, and we've got Jordan Love. We have a pretty young wide receiving core, but they have a chance to go get like whatever that capstone for that offense. And they see that and they want to go at it. Or Brock Powers, right? They see a chance to go get that. We go back from 16 to 25. Packers have 2 second rounders. They have their own and they have the Jets. So like looking at logical partners, like, okay, then you could get the 25th, get your tier 2 dude, and now you're back in the second round in an okay position. So just looking at, I do think there's ways to get a second rounder back without trading back too far.
That's true. The Packers being that target, like I can't see that one for the life of me, man. I mean, you and I see football totally different in one way, Clinton. Like you look as that next receiver as like the next big thing that's really going to push you over the top. And I'm like, dude, receivers are everywhere. Like, don't do that, especially trade up. Like that feels silly to me. And they just drafted that tight end this last year. He was pretty good. As a rookie, was it Musgrave?
Musgrave,
So I mean,
they drafted 2. They got Musgrave and they got another tight end in the draft.
The other dude.
Yeah, I don't see them going for Bowers either. But
they might look at him and be like, all right, but this is dude from Atlanta that hasn't played. What's his face? The tight end. Yeah, Pitts. But like, hey, we're gonna get the next Pitts, but we're actually gonna use him in the way that he was supposed to be used, and we're not going to put him in line to block, because that's a bit which I think what you might be getting with the Georgia kid there. So because he's just a different type of weapon. So either way, I'm just trying to throw some possibilities out there into the multiverse that I think are possible. And I do love what Nate Schutz put up here, that Jarek Reed, I love what we saw from him. I know it wasn't all that much. Well,
yeah, that's what I was going to say on special teams, because I agree. He was good on special teams. Yeah.
And then he got in a little bit and I thought he was good. Then he got hurt, but at least he brought the hat. And people seem to be like, okay, he's fast. He's instinctive. We shall see. I realize that that's still a scratcher that the dude basically got redshirted. But it's him and Julian Love, I guess, right now. And away we go, right? So
Kobe Bryant, and
I am not into the idea of Kobe Bryant at safety, man. I don't want to. I'd much rather just play him outside like it did in Cincinnati. Like I'm
good.
I'm not even saying start there, guys. I'm not saying he starts over Trey Brown or starts over even Michael Jackson. If he's, I'm literally just saying I think that's where he was best, and it might be like that's his ceiling. He's not a slot guy. Adam, you were on that train before me. I won't say before Brandan too, but before me, certainly. You're like, no, this guy's not going to cut it as a slot guy. I don't think he's got it as a safety. I just look at him and it's like, all right, dudes are catching the ball 2-3 yards in front of him, and he, likely makes the tackle after the catch is made. All right. That's not great. That's not what safeties need to be, breaking things up, and I just don't see it. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am on that one.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys hopping on tonight. And I think we hit all the big topics in terms of the guys getting cut, the guys who could potentially still get cut, the KJ news that I'm still not happy about. So want to make sure to remind everybody, if you want to help support the show, getintheflock.com, get you into our Discord, where we've been chatting kind of throughout the day as the news has come up, and made us think that, tonight would be a good night to hop on, do a live show, and talk about a few things as it happens.
And if y'all enjoy Salty Brandan, because I do, I love Salty Brandan. That's one of my favorite versions of Brandan. Feel free to hit the like ski button, the subscribe ski button. We'd appreciate it a ton. And appreciate the over 130 of you who have joined us live here tonight. That's been fun.
Heck yeah.
Well, here's an easy question on the way out the door. Nate Schutz, who y'all think is going to be opening day starter? Running back, Sharbs or K9? K9, it's obvious. I mean, which one of the better backs is Sharbs? I think with DJ Dallas, he's going to fill that DJ Dallas role in a definitely in a better way. And then they can hopefully elevate Kenny McIntosh. Maybe they go out and they draft a guy in the 5th, 6th round, and you have your. I feel like running back is a spot that we're relatively set at Now going into the draft, we try and take one every year, but maybe we don't have to this year.
Yeah, we do not need to draft a running back. We can always pick up other running backs as UDFAs because every year there's like 2 or 3 of them that end up starting in the NFL anyway, right? I think one more important part about the DJ Dallas saga is who will be returning punts and can they do a let's call it more aggressive, a better job. DJ often caught it or sometimes just watched it roll by him. I'm just really intrigued. Like, can we get some lift out of our returners, some lift out of our kickoff returners and punt returners? Man, some of these dudes tilt the field that we haven't had one in a while. Really, like young Lockett was the last time we had one to bring it back to Tyler.
Nate wants to fight me on the way out the door here.
Salty Brandan, man. See, you're stirring people up.
I don't know if it's that straightforward. It says Nate shoot. I wonder how much patience McDonald will have for a running back that doesn't play discipline. I don't know if you could say that Kenneth Walker is undisciplined just because he doesn't run into closed holes. Like the offensive line did not block all that great for K9. And I know there were a couple games this past year where like K9 would run into the back or, run around because there wasn't a hole there. And then they bring in Charbonnet and then holes would magically open wide and Charbonnet would just run through them for like 15, 20 yards. And K9 had to be on the bench just livid pissed because he's like, why don't they open a hole that big when I'm out there and I could have scored a touchdown?
Wait, I have to ask, do we have a new version of good playbook, bad playbook? Is this what's happening?
Oh,
like
maybe
in the years past for any of the new listeners, there'd be the second half. Okay, let's put away the bad playbook. Let's whip out the good
Darryl
playbook.
Bevel playbook, right?
Yeah, and then Russ would do magical things, and we'd win the game with a good playbook. Because of course you win the game. You can only win the game in the fourth quarter. But turning a page here, do we have a bit of that? Do we actually have? Because I'm with you, Brandan. It's like, look, are there times where K9 times where he could be a little frustrating? It's like, okay, he forgave the 2-yard and cloud of dust hole,
right,
tried to bounce it outside. He does do that, and sometimes that could result in 0 yards or negative yards. And if that's undisciplined, okay, I could understand the definition. With that though, most times last year, he was like making nothing. I mean, making awesome stuff out of nothing. Supposed to lose 3-4 yards. He gains 2. Looks like it's line of scrimmage. He's up the field for like 5 or 6 or 7. Like, I don't know, give that dude a couple of yards where he can get to a second layer and start juking linebackers. Like Sharp's got opportunities. I don't think these dudes are the same type of back. They're both good. They serve a purpose. But to answer the question, I mean, to me, K9 is a star and Charbonnet is a good NFL back.
If that is undisciplined in terms of a running style, what you described there, if that's the definition of it, then the greatest running back of all time, Barry Sanders, was undisciplined.
I thought you were going to say Lacey.
Yes. Oh gosh, how did I forget Eddie Lacy?
Well, thanks to everybody who joined me tonight. Adam, Clinton, Phil, thanks for joining in and talking ball. And thanks to everybody in chat. I appreciate the super chats as well that we got from Kari and we got from our live executive producer, our Ryan 911. So, gentlemen, I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.